All right, so you guys did really a lot better this time on the types of biological macromolecules, and I'm really proud of everybody for getting a way stronger foundation on the molecular subunits. Because actually, what we're going to talk about today are some health food claims. So before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and turn this video on and we'll warm up to today. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the common misconceptions that you guys have had. And we already covered some of these misconceptions, but I wanted to go over the hierarchy of atoms, molecules, and cells. Now, we already talked about this one the other day, but I want to bring this I wanted to bring this up before we go into the health food claims, because what we have here is, I wanted to review, most everybody got a lot better on the final assessment, and I just wanted to review really quickly these subunits. So let's get into the PowerPoint real quickly and look at the hierarchy really quickly to review. I just wanted to remind everybody before we talk about these health food claims, I think it's really important to remember what we went over yesterday on the lactase enzyme, and you guys, we were just to review, we were talking about sugar monomers, and so that would lay, where would it be on here, guys? Under carbohydrates, you've got, okay, so we were looking at polysaccharides, and where does that lay on the hierarchy that we referred to, the polysaccharides, in terms of where it was on our, everybody had their flow charts. Okay, can you guys refer to those and tell me where on the hierarchy are the carbohydrates? Yes, they're synthesized by, great. They're synthesized by proteins, exactly. So carbohydrates are synthesized by proteins, and the molecular subunit of a carbohydrate is, so it just shows polysaccharides here, but what are these guys right here? Yeah, they're definitely called monomers, but is there another word? I mean, do you know the specific type of monomers that these are? Monosaccharides? Good, yes. So we're going to talk today about those two particular molecules, the proteins, which there are several different types of proteins. And where are those guys in the hierarchy? The proteins over here. Okay, great. So if you take an arrow and you draw an arrow over to polysaccharides, you notice that these guys, one class of, what's the class of proteins that has an effect on the polysaccharides? On whether they're in the larger chain or whether they're mono, like the individual, like little pearls on a chain. Who can remember, right? Okay, great. So that, yes, they're enzymes. Enzymes cleave. Okay, great. So now let's talk a little bit about a health food claim. So I thought that you guys would have a lot of fun with this because I was at the store the other day and I saw this, and a lot of people, you know, a lot of people are going paleo these days, and so I thought it would be kind of fun to bring this into class. And I know a lot of people don't want to eat, you know, they don't want a spike in their blood sugar, right? So they're buying these sorts of, you know, products. And so I took it and I turned it around. Yeah, you guys all know that I believe in looking at food labels, just as you guys all know, right? So here's the food label, and you can't really see it too well. But it says here the ingredients are maltodextrin, that's the first ingredient, and the second ingredient is Monkfruit extract. So my question is, are we going to be gimmicked by this kind of thing? Well, let's find out if it's a decent product or if it will result in a spike in blood sugar, okay? And also how many carbohydrates are in this. Let's take a look. So it doesn't have it doesn't have very many carbohydrates in it, but then Miss Smitham, as you guys all know, being a scientist, I'm going to look really carefully, and I see here that it's less than 0.5 grams. Well, it has very few carbohydrates, but what's our serving size? Our serving size is almost nothing, 0.5 grams. So what that really means is, let's just say you had a half a cup, then ask yourself, can somebody do the numbers? How many carbohydrates do you guys come up with? If somebody can convert 0.5 grams into a cup, somebody's good at math, somebody go ahead and do those numbers and find out what half a cup is and how many grams go into half a cup, because half of a gram has less than 0.5. Like somebody can do the, let's just say 0.5 grams of carbohydrates for every 0.5 grams of the product. Okay, so it's almost all carbohydrates, right? So what a lot of companies, what they'll do is they will say if it's below 0.5, then they'll just say, look, it's less than 0.5. It could be 0.449, so it's almost 0.5, but then what they're doing is they're making it sound like it has no carbohydrates in it. Make sense? And we'll go over these food labels again in more detail, but I thought that was a really interesting thing. So most of it is maltodextrin. And what is maltodextrin? So let's take a look. All right, maltodextrin. Okay. So it's basically, I did a little bit of research on it, and maltodextrin, and I know my word roots and stems and things, so maltodextrin is essentially, dextrin is basically glucose, and it's just another word for glucose. So maltodextrin is it's basically synthesized from a very more complex carbohydrate like corn or wheat or other types of carbohydrates, right? Like potatoes. And what they do is they chemically process it so that they break it down into shorter chains. And so maltodextrin is basically a shorter chain carbohydrate. So when you eat it, your body digests it, and the enzymes in there will just basically cleave it into essentially sugars, and so then it goes into your bloodstream and spikes the blood sugars. So it is a carbohydrate, but it's a short chain carbohydrate, and it does spike your blood sugar pretty quickly. Now, if what we're talking about in this product is that the vast majority of this product is, the first ingredient is maltodextrin. So it's basically sugar, and but it's a short chain carbohydrate. So it's both a carbohydrate as well as a sugar, because it becomes a sugar in your intestines because you secrete enzymes that will cleave the two monomers apart, and so they basically forms the monomer glucose. Okay, so this is an example of sort of like, and it has monk fruit extract. Monk fruit extract, I'm not going to take the time to show you, but I had it up on the screen. Monk fruit extract comes from a plant. It's 300 times more potent than sugar, but it doesn't have the sweet, it doesn't have the caloric as many calories, and I'm not going to get into the details of that. Suffice to say, that's a second ingredient in this product. So essentially what you're buying here is sugar, and they're charging $7 for, how much are they giving you? I mean, it's a very small bag. It's probably about 7 ounces or something. So the biggest problem here is that you think you're buying something that's good for you, when in fact it's really no different than eating sugar. Okay, and plus you're also taking in monk fruit, and you might want to do a little research and find out what is monk fruit. So these are some of the benefits of knowing science. And so with that, let's we're at 9 minutes. Okay, we are just about to dive into the next topic, which is to look at the ribosome. And we're going to take a look at this ribosome and all the subunits that we talked about in the hierarchy and see what's being produced. So we're at our time limit, and thanks for listening.